Senator Morgan LaMantia is a sixth generation Texan. She was born and grew up in the Rio Grande Valley, currently resides there. Her bachelor's degree is from the University of Texas in Austin. She received her law degree from St. Mary's University. She's currently in-house counsel for the family business, her family business, L&F Distributors. She's an active member in her community. She serves on several boards, the STARS Scholarship Fund, the Gladys Porter Zoo, the Museum of South Texas History. She's also a member in the Senate of the committees on education, health and human services, nominations, and state affairs, which headlined the debate for the legislature's most contentious and impactful issues. She gets a real special shout out from us in that she arrived home last night about midnight from a trip out to Washington, D.C. So we're just grateful to have her here to provide the Senate perspective to what's going on with our legislature and what's going on in Austin. And we're just very pleased to have her here. So, Senator.
So good morning, and thank you, Eric, for the introduction, and thank you to the Nueces River Authority for inviting me to participate once again in this conversation. From what I've heard, this conference has been extremely productive. My office spent a lot of time during this interim connecting with many of you and gathering your perspectives on our water needs. As we continue to grow as a state and a region, we need to ensure that we're prepared to support the water quantity, quality, and our water supply, our water systems, and our flood and drainage infrastructure. And I know y'all have heard a lot about that this weekend, or this past few days. All the rain this week has provided some much needed relief to our reservoirs and our drought situation, but it also reminds us of our recurring problem we have here on the coast and in this region, and that's flooding. And whether the flooding results from a storm surge on the bay or a heavy downpour of rain on the mainland, we need to make sure that we have the infrastructure to ensure our families' homes and businesses are safe and that our roads and our evacuation routes are cleared quickly. Over the last few years, we keep hearing from a lot of the experts that it's going to be one of the worst hurricane season. And we kind of hear that year after year, and sometimes it becomes a boy who cried wolf situation. But again, we're hearing again that this is going to be a very bad and very intense hurricane season, and we're seeing that rain coming in early, and we need to make sure that regardless of how we feel about whether or not it's accurate, we need to be prepared. We need to ensure that we are taking the steps we need so when that big storm does come, when we get that large hurricane that we've been fortunate enough to avoid over the years, we're able to prepare for it and to mitigate those damages. This is a very unique part of the state. We commonly find ourselves fighting in the middle of a drought situation that can last for a year, and then all of a sudden have impending flooding and have to deal with an influx of water. We also face other unique challenges. We have to balance economic growth with protecting our beautiful ecosystems that characterize our region, and all these complexities together mean that the one-size-fits-all policies that some people in the state of Texas try to issue or try to apply to everyone doesn't always fit for us. And it's that unique aspect and that drought and flooding season in the same month sometimes that goes unnoticed by other members of the state. And the Balancing Act is truly highlighted by the need to fortify our water supply. The state population is expected to increase by 70% over the next 45 years, resulting in almost 7 million acre feet of water shortages. And that's during that same time frame, Region N is expected to grow by 20% and will face a potential shortage of 50,000 acre feet per year. While there are multiple ways to increase water supply, each has its challenges. For example, groundwater is not unlimited. Produced water needs to be treated and transported, and desalination has environmental and energy and cost concerns. Each of these methods has its long list of pros and cons. And one point of concern is that these are all long-term solutions. And the longer we wait to decide on a plan, the more expensive it becomes to implement. And right now, we need short-term solutions like water conservation and drought management. And though they're not entirely sustainable, they're necessary to hold us over until other solutions are put into place. Many of these short-term solutions and long-term initiatives require effort from every single one of us. And while it's encouraging that the state is looking at every single possible solution to water shortages, it's even more important that the state leaders hear from each of you and hear your input on how those solutions, how those initiatives need to be implemented. As my colleague, Chairman Todd Hunter, who spoke the other day, has said, the best laws come from you. Y'all are the experts, and stakeholders like you drive policy priorities. Every year, the legislature looks very different. There's new members, some members retire, new members come in. But y'all are the constants that drive the change we need to see. And we can't afford to kick the can down the road anymore and just hope for rain. And while in the same breath, hoping that the rain that does come doesn't result in flooding. So we need to find other more sustainable solutions. And Texas is in a position right now to make a lasting impact on water issues. And I expect to continue to build on these investments next session. My team and I have worked really closely with Chairman Pop, the Texas Water Development Board, and Chairman Perry at the Senate Water Committee. Recent internal conversations indicate a strategy to form a dedicated revenue source for water, similar to what the State Highway Fund has with Texas Department of Transportation. And there's no doubt that solutions to our water problems exist, but it's simply of how much are we willing to prioritize and invest in them. And y'all are the key to making sure that the legislature and our governor and our state leaders make sure that this is a priority. We've already heard talk about needing to invest another $5 billion in the electric grid, and we need electricity to grow. We need electricity for our areas, but we also need water. And so we need to make sure that as much as we're investing in other infrastructure elements of Texas, we need to invest just as much, if not more, in our water shortages, water supply, water systems, and our drainage and flooding areas as well. During this interim, we've had really productive meetings with Texas Water Development Board, TCEQ, state leaders in this space, and great hands-on meetings with river authorities, groundwater conservation authorities, water districts, drainage districts, irrigation districts, and many experts at the local level. Because we count on y'all to inform us of the priorities, like water shortages, antiquated water systems, concerns about water quality and drainage issues. I invite all of you to connect with my office. I've got, many of y'all know Jose Pereira in the back. He's been around the area for a long time. And we've got Brandon and a couple other team members here. Connect with me, connect with my office whenever there's a concern, when there's an issue, when there's something you're dealing with, whether you're part of my district or not, because we need as many voices in Austin fighting for the water needs that we have throughout South Texas. So talk to us, talk to other legislative leaders as well. We really need to make sure that water is a priority. And we have a lot of people fighting for that in Austin, across the state. And the more voices we can lend to that, the more expertise and local voices we have that are coming directly from you guys who are dealing with these problems on an everyday basis, the stronger our efforts are going to be and the more successful we'll be this coming session. So let me just say thank you so much for all of y'all's efforts. Thank you so much for answering the phone when we've called and asked for your input and your expertise on different issues. I'm honored to serve as your state senator and excited to continue serving and to continue fighting for South Texas and the water issues and our concerns. And I'll leave it open to any questions anyone may have. I know y'all just got a legislative update, but if there's any other questions or lingering issues, let me know.
Does anybody have any questions that I can ask the senator? Well, maybe I'll get things kicked off, started. We had asked Julie and Sarah about that. Last year we had passed the first water fund, and that was, it was a great success, but was also not enough for what we need. Is that a priority that you see for this next legislative session to pass a second water fund?
Yes, well, maybe not a second fund, but to add more money to those funds that do exist. Yes, during this past session, this water fund, this was Chairman Perry's bill and his big push. And one of the things he said was, we did give a $17 billion property tax abatement, which was fantastic and great. But really, we need $20 billion in our water fund as well if we're really going to make sure that Texas can handle the growth and the needs that we're going to be having in the next couple of years. And so we're going to have a big push to put more money into the water fund, make sure that we have funds to help with some of those antiquated systems, whether it's our water systems and wastewater plants, make sure that we have the ability to support our communities as they grow, to handle the drainage and the flooding needs that they're going to be having with that growth, and make sure that we have new water fund, not just water conservation, but actual new water supply as well.
Any other questions out there? I think I could ask her questions all day.
Hi, Senator. I'm Tim Richardson with the Nueces River Authority in Clayburgh County. And, the General Land Office has a mission that is coast-directed. And as we all know, it's an outward-facing challenge on sea level rise and those type of issues. But then when you look behind the coast at the fresh water coming in, who handles that? Because basically you're dealing with a lot of nutrient loading up and down your coast, and so you might have a nice beach, but your health of being able to use the coastal environment is in trouble. So should GLO add to their mission, or is there another state agency that should step in?
So when it comes to the fresh water and the different rivers, tributaries that go into our bays and our Gulf, that goes through the TCEQ. Those would be ones that would monitor and oversee those issues. And it's true that the fresh water that's coming in and the other chemicals or whatever else is in there has an impact on our bays just as much as the water from the Gulf or the seawater as well. In South Texas, down in the Cameron County area, we have the Arroyo, Colorado, dumps a lot of salt water, fresh water into a very high salinity area. Well, there's a desal plant that does a discharge in that area. And because of that discharge and that fresh water, it's able to balance out, and we keep that salinity really kind of perfect right there. That's not true of every other region along the coast, and we need to understand that, and we need help from the state to be able to keep an eye on that and monitor it. And right now, yes, it's mostly TCEQ. Though I will say GLO is also looking at using gray water from some of the new developments and oil and gas production that's happening in some parts of Texas, and bring that into the Rio Grande River so that we can help with the supply shortage there. And that is water that's been treated, not to potable levels, but it's been treated and it's clean water, sometimes cleaner than some of the water we get from Mexico anyways, and is able to help with that resource. So the GLO does have a role in that fresh water that's coming down our rivers, but if you're talking about making sure that the quality of that water is up to a certain standard, that goes to either our river authorities and TCEQ, unless of course you're on the Rio Grande, and then that also involves the IBWC. Yes, sir.
I'll kind of piggyback a little bit on Tim's question. Is in the new water fund, wastewater and reuse were not able to be used, projects available for that. But that is an issue we see with there's not a lot of funding, there's not enough funding for our wastewater projects out there. Is that something that you see as an issue, or maybe any solutions?
Very much so, because when we're also talking about wastewater, there's that potential for purple water, to use that recycled water to bring back into our water systems. And for a lot of us, that is a new water program. And so making sure that we have the ability to not only improve our current wastewater systems, but also have the ability to possibly turn it into recyclable or purple water systems, that takes a lot of money, and that's not necessarily part of those new water funds. And that's something that we were going to be looking at, making sure that we have funds to update our just public water systems in our municipalities and our counties, but also update those wastewater systems. And I think that is a plan that that many of us are looking forward to funding this coming session. Again, it becomes down to what is the priority. Looking like next session, we're coming in with $20 billion surplus. Everyone's going to be fighting for those dollars. But if we can all come with one voice saying the number one priority for the bulk of those dollars needs to be water, we can get it done. And we can make sure those billions go to water. But that's only if we get everybody talking about water, and we make sure that we're talking to all of our legislators in Texas, including our governor, making sure that they know how big of an issue and a priority this is for our region and for the whole state.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you. And I hope if those bills get filed between you and the organizations here, that we get that information out to you guys so that y'all can fight for those funds throughout. Is there any other questions?
Senator, we just want to thank you. You are the senator that represents the largest territory of Gulf Coast counties. And because of that, you were a champion. And I want to make sure everybody in this room knows you were a champion for Coastal Bend Bays and Estuaries program, one of the 2 national estuary preserves in our country, Galveston and here at the Coastal Bend, in getting us an additional $1.2 million over the biennium. But it was a rider, and we're going to need to come back to you again. But when we talk about water and water quality, I just wanted to say that you're right. It's just such a big umbrella, no pun intended. But if we can get some awareness, back in your office again, we hate to keep coming back.
Come as much as you want.
But maybe we will get it in the budget and we won't have to keep coming back on a rider. But I think that also is part of our water mission here on the Gulf Coast, is to increase restoration efforts and habitat and all the good things that CBB, and they run all the way from the valley all the way up to Aransas. So just want to say thank you, plant the seed that unfortunately we need. How many billion? Just $1 little million for CBB. Thank you.
But I will say, come give my office a call, give me a call, come to our office as often as you need to. Really, you will not bother us. We want to hear from you guys, and we want to understand the entire breadth of the issue, because I know everything can get very, very complicated, and each area, each city, each county is very different. And so however we can help, please come by our office anytime to talk to us about the issues that y'all need help with.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the audience?
Senator, we got a good overview here on the process, from the ladies, as to how this all lines up, and only 14% of the bills, make it. And that the low numbered bills are the ones that are going to get those priorities you were talking about. What is the general mood, with the power structure as it is? For water, we saw $1 billion come out. I think it was Chairman King that asked for the $8 billion, and it obviously people in this room really see water as something. It's our lifeblood. Either we're going to have it like electricity, or we're not going to have the growth continue. What's the general mood around that? Do the people there see it anywhere like we do, or and what else can we be doing to move that number of that legislation, to one of those low numbers?
Right. And so there are certain senators and House members that do see water as a priority. And there's many of them that we're working with. And like Chairman King, he was a great advocate for it, though he's not returning to the legislature next session. He's someone that now, I told him, he's got plenty of time to teach me water and educate me on everything that he knows. But because we're losing some of those members and some of those big champions, we're going to need y'all to help push the issue. We've got Chairman Perry in the Senate. We're working towards it. I know Senator Chuy Hinojosa is a big advocate for water as well. Senator Zaffarini as well. But we really need a big push. We need to make sure that everyone understands what a big issue this is, because right now we're hearing a lot about education, and we're hearing a lot about the electric grid. And water is not being talked about among the Texas leadership. So the more noise you can make, the more people you can talk to and get them to call their Texas legislators, their Texas senators, to call the governor, reach out to them, talk to your newspapers, make sure that they are covering the story. Sometimes water, people think it's boring, but it's an absolute necessity. And if we can get more people in the state talking about it, we can get more journalists and people covering the story and what's going on and the need that this addresses, I think we'll be able to make this a priority, make this a low number bill. But there are people in leadership that do see the need for water and are pushing for it. But the more volume we can give to that voice, the better we're going to become session. It's not too late. It's never too late. But we need everyone pushing all the time.
Thank you so much for your time, Senator. We really greatly appreciate it.